Yeah, I'll be, man. My fellow hairless minx of the Blue Sea. It's me. The Hot and Fresh Fire Friday chapter. Y'all know what time it is today. Alright? We got a lot to talk about. A bunch of different situations going on here, a bunch of ideas floating around in my head. The greatness of Egghead Island. This arc has been wild, man. It really has. But let's jump into it. Chapter 1067, 1067. Vegapunk, right? Row Records, Suge Knight, hanging from the balcony, man. First off, the cover chapter. Now, one of the biggest disappointments, right, since Bobbin's hype of Whole Cake Island was the biggest fraud in the entire series, and one of the biggest frauds I've seen in any series, period, as far as like what we thought versus what we got, right? With Orochi, we knew what time it was. Like, he was never portrayed to be that dude. But top 5 dead or alive, Judge Vince Smoke, man, the Simp Smoke bastard himself. Crying at the tea party that was rough one, man. I used to let the Simp Smokes have it during Whole Cake. Well, y'all wouldn't have liked it. Even as a person who likes Santi, y'all wouldn't have. Some of y'all didn't like me during Whole Cake. But we got him versus my man Gangster Gastino, a.k.a. the Orochimaru of the series, a.k.a. Frieza, a.k.a. Shidododododo. And who knows how this is going to end, right? Both of them are pretty weak. We kind of know this, but Caesar's is deadly, man. It's a nasty, nasty ability, which I'm pretty sure Judge Vince Smoke's probably, used to whatever it is that they do. Whether they fight or not, who knows? Who really cares? Eventually, they'll be working on something that will be necessary, right? Especially because as the German have been known to be able to transverse certain places that in this chapter get brought up that other people just have not been able to do. I do think that this is kind of interesting, and it probably will lead to some either technological or something. And also this castle that's on the cover chapter. If Oda finds a way to jam in the laboratory from Whole Cake Island, which I've brought up so many times about how did they get that away from Whole Cake Island, I don't know, man, but we'll see what's up, right? Anyway, we got some craziness, man, because we're opening up with basically Bonnie asking about Dr. Vegapunk, like, yo, you had a chromodomius magnum, what happened to it? He basically like, I cut it off, man, and the theories and ideas about Dr. Vegapunk and how he functions as his introduction have been pretty spot on. It's always the execution, right? We're not. How Oda decides to fool us isn't always the way we think. Sometimes things are very straightforward, but I do like how he functions and how it's explained. It makes perfect sense, right? There's a lot of weaknesses, and I'll bring that up a little bit later about how Vegapunk functions too, And what's funny to me is because how Oda likes to do old school cartoon, comic strip stuff, like how Gear Fifth is, and some of the stuff he does, like even with the Dr. Seuss stuff and Dr. Vegapunk, and you look at his head, and when the panel is missing, right, and they show the imaginary dots, because you guys know it's been Shigeo season for me lately with the Mob Psycho the past few weeks. Only one thing popped in my head, and because that was just such a dope moment, but it was goofy at the same time, right? When Taruki shows up with the hair on 150%, that had me cracking up. You guys know what moment I'm talking about, where Ritsu was about to get just destroyed. Boku wa Hanisara Taruki da. Yeah, like you know what I'm talking about. But that's what Vegapunk's head was on, as far as that part. And even Jinbei was like, I heard rumors about it being big. I'm like, whoa, pause, Jinbei, hold on, man, what are we doing? Obviously I'm joking, but so Dr. Vegapunk explained something that has also been an idea that's been around since we've known he's a character, even before Egghead Island, and that's he has some devil fruit that something to do with the brain, and he has the no me, which is funny to me that obviously I don't speak the language of Japanese. Obviously, there's some phrases and words you just get used to hearing and how they're structured, but the difference between just having those two syllables separate versus them being a complete word, it's one of the few times where I actually get the joke, and it is funny, So shout out to Big Go TCB, but I wonder how long he's thought about that, and if that actually has some type of idea tied to devil fruits in general, right? Why they're named the way that they are with the pattern and stuff. Some of it is just, I'm sure, goofy or whatever, and kind of like the fits the vibe of One Piece, but I don't know. Anyway, so he's explaining how his devil fruit works, and he has photographic memory and just unlimited storage data, like a cloud server type of situation. And it makes more sense now with the six paths of Vegapunk, right? That he functions this way, and the fact that the apple on his head is really just an antenna, which I didn't even think about it. But while I was rereading the panel, I'm like, is that a brainstem joke? Because the stem of the apple, and Oda was already on some Jinbei dad puns, like sitcom type jokes. I don't know what he was on this chapter, but he was on his cornball hard, But seeing how that part worked, it will be. I'm sure it will play a part later, right? As far as what does he want to do, and the other part about it was kind of cool. That I won't say cool is, I guess it was cool, but it's just dumb. Like Luffy is so impressed by hover boots, and this is a character who can fly and chooses to do so a little bit more frequently than we thought. But him just playing with hover boots anyway, that's just perfect, right? Like I wouldn't even be surprised if he found like a racquetball or a dodgeball interesting, or like a bouncy ball. He would sit there and play with a bouncy ball. Like that's just how he is. But anyway, the antenna itself, and Luffy referring to, oh, well, if you could, since you lost most of you cut off your brain, like doesn't that make you dumb? Which him asking about anybody being stupid is just funny on its own. But then he goes into explains that it's basically like an upload download system, and how he can, anything that any of the Vegapunks learn is shared between them, right? Which again, this is another weakness, apparent weakness, right? Because once a day they do this. They go sync up to Punk Records and they store data, right? And who has the ability to affect memory? Pudding. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but that's just one of the ideas that popped in my head. I was like, oh, that could be, imagine if Pudding wiped out all of Punk Records with one touch, you know what I mean? Like, there's a way for Pudding to make her way to Egghead Island, right, to begin with. Not that she would do that, but that was just something I'm thinking, which obviously could be shown through Cypher Pole, just in a different way, probably with brute force. But and then the other thing I thought about was Den Mushi. And I was like, why does this sound so? Because obviously, besides the voice of all things, there's not really telepathic connections. That's not really a big thing in the series. The closest we had to that, I guess you want to say, is Viola back in Dressrosa. She's probably the closest person I can think of. But there's no Ino, in this series that we've been shown. So his ability to be able to connect through brainwaves, I don't know if that's just his own genius of combining how those things work, in radio waves or, like electronic magnetic waves and stuff like that, and amplifying with his own brain power. But I just thought that was kind of like, I don't know. It just reminded me of how Den and Mushi's are. And I don't know if that's where he got the idea from. But it makes sense. But not to get too distracted. But so basically, after he's explaining, the fact that he's cloned himself, he told Luffy, like, the Vegapunks that you met earlier, those are my clones. And of course, Luffy, he thinks everything is cockaboo shit now, especially after meeting Raizo. Like, that just, So he got him going from playing with sci-fi, hover boots like Mega Man to still, want to cockaboo every now and again. Luffy is that's to go with the code for a reason, man. He's just a fun character to have around. But he's explaining the six paths of Vegapunk, and then basically once a day they all go upload their data to Punk Row Records, where Suge Knight is hanging out. And then they have to sync their memory and their knowledge together. And then basically he refers to this to a library, and then he wants to create the internet essentially, where all of his work and expertise and ideas and inspirations, right, and all the work of previous scientists in the past, because he isn't made out to be a character that just steals from other people, right? He has like that concept to him, but he's not trying to hide information from anybody. Again, like with the Atlas and wanting the Aircon to be a thing, and some of the stuff he's doing. He's committed some horrible acts, which we'll get into a little bit, I'm sure, but he's not here to just be the smartest person, right? What good is being the smartest person if it's not doing anything for anybody? That seems to be like the core of his character so far, and so wanting to create the internet, and then Jinbei immediately acknowledging the haters who's going to show up, and I do like how this is explained. It's pretty cool to me because it's very simple, but it does say a lot, right? It's the fact that Jinbei immediately brings up people with different ideologies can have clashes, in which could lead to trouble, right? If you have this open network of ideas, which that's a true statement. And then coming from him being a fisherman of all people, he definitely would understand all about that, right? He's currently still living that in the series. So, of course, Dr. Vegapunk does acknowledge this. Like, yeah, that's a possibility, but without, sacrificing something of that nature, science will never be able to progress. Basically, in his eyes, another core of his character, science must progress at all costs. And I say that because if you think about all the experimentation that it's implied that he's done over the years, to include more than likely children. So all the different aspects that we've seen between Queen, Judge, Gangster Gastino probably also apply to Dr. Vegapunk. It's just that he's more of a neutral character, as he's shown. He's not out here, again, he's not out here to make money or do anything like that. And then he doesn't seem to agree with a lot of the world government decisions, hence why he still has no issue hiding this legendary Iron Giant, right, that we learned about in this chapter. Because again, with him, it's all about the science. But don't forget, he's probably committed some very horrible acts. He's probably not Dr. Hogback out here, right? But you didn't get Lunari. This isn't the Senju clan, right? This isn't Hashirama cells popping up out of nowhere. You had to do something to get Lunarian DNA, right? So it was probably through some oppressive means to the government. So that's what I mean by saying the different ideas. And even in the, like right here, the difference in ideology already shows up in the very next section of dialogue, right? Right after Jinbei says that, because then you have Bonnie immediately see Dr. Vegapunk, that's what's wrong with you. You don't have no problem making those type of sacrifices. So that's already a clash of ideologies. And I like that because, again, it's a theory. He doesn't have to give a lot of dialogue to stress that point, that that's what you're actually seeing here and the consequences of that, right? We see all these great things around Egghead Island and all these great inventions, but don't also forget the downside, right? With someone like Kuma's situation now, regardless if he chose that situation for himself, it still exists. And that reality is what Bonnie has been living through. So that part to me was pretty cool. And then, of course, she pulls out the saber that a lot of us called, a few weeks ago, like, okay, she's gonna, and my thing was like, how are you gonna use Dr. Vegapunk's weapons against him? And I didn't know what kind of character he was gonna be as far as combat is concerned. He's probably not that easy to kill, right? There's no way he didn't account for combat. That just wouldn't make any sense, like, given what world they live in, especially after seeing the Buster Call. Like, he has some kind of hands and defense mechanisms, no doubt. But she points the saber at him, and then gets Perona diffed. Because that's exactly what I thought about was Usopp in the Perona fight with the bugs. Because she couldn't do it. The Haki isn't strong enough there with the bugs. So, Bonnie, like, you cool, but if you out here getting low diff by bugs, man, I don't know what's up with that. But it was funny because, again, the Perona thing. But and then it kind of ties into Vegapunk's initial, we'll say, I guess, insecurities, right, when it comes to his inventions, because he basically just says, like, okay, well, that failure of an invention just saved my life right now. Because Jinbei is, telling her, like, look, if you kill Dr. Vegapunk, we're going to have some problems. Like, you're going to create enemies that you think you're worried about your dad now. Of course, Jinbei doesn't know Cypherport was on the way to kill him, but he's one of the most important people in the series. It's pretty obvious that he is, But even Dr. Vegapunk, the way he's sitting there, and he's regretful in a way, like that human part is there. He's not, he's not Mayuri, right, or something like that, where his humanity part of him is like, I understand why she feels like that. And I'm sorry, even though it's somewhat of an emotional panel, the part that, at least for me, because I'm an idiot, but seeing his tongue just hanging, almost touching the ground, like while he's sitting slumped like that and he's all sad, but seeing his tongue almost touch the ground is just, it's hard to take him serious like that, man. Like, come on, man, pick it, or roll it up or do something with it. I feel like some time in this arc we're going to get some kind of gag where he pulls his tongue and it rolls up like a curtain, like on some old school cartoon stuff. I don't know, it's funny, but in that panel it's just like, come on, man. But anyway, basically then he asks Luffy about did he see a dragon that was similar to Kaido. That's what it was back when he was in Wano. And basically he confirms everything exactly how the ideas have been since Punk Hazard, even down to the joke, right, about the color being wrong, because that's been a joke for literally years now. And this is one of those things where I know Oda knows about it, but I'm not going to change what I'm doing, man. And it's still funny to me. It was still funny just because the look on Luffy's face. Like, you knew it was coming. You knew it was a possibility. It was exactly how we've been saying it. But it's still delivered. So I'm cool with that, as far as that part. But basically confirming that back on Punk Hazard, that the fruit that he made was only a failure basically because of the color, right? But Luffy's rattling off all these things that the great Shogunosuke can do. He's like, yeah, that's why, even Luffy put two and two. It's like, oh, that's why it looks like Kaido. He had all those Kaido's moves. He could do everything Kaido can do. My man, no, my man, what clap Kaido, cause it's one, and you're done, son. And then Dr. Vegapunk goes and explains that basically it took him 20 years to be able to develop that fruit, studying Kaido's lineage factor, which also would indicate, even though we're not, at least from what I remember, unless it came out in the SBS or Viva card, we don't know exactly when Kaido got his devil fruit, but if we know he worked on it for 20 years, that takes us back to the same time period as Buster Call and Ohara and things of that nature. So, that's very interesting. And then when did he get in contact with Kaido? Does this tie into the numbers and giantification as a whole? And the reason why I'm even asking this question is basically because, okay, I'll get to that in a little bit. So basically he's saying, I worked on this for 20 years and the countless amount of resources. Is he referring to a situation similar to SAD? Because if you think about how you think SAD is produced, right, for Smile Fruits, you're basically draining the essence out of those creatures. Obviously, that's not exactly confirming what it is, but that's kind of how I think about it. You're extracting the essence for these creatures. That's why all these artificial devil fruits have been related to Soans, because it's a life force that you can reproduce. So as far as other fruits like Paramecia that have all these other strange abilities that are not tied to a life force, the process might be different. And then if you think about some of the ideas on how devil fruits might have been produced, as far as dark arts are concerned, you're basically taking these powerful humans or whatever creatures that existed in that time period when they got defeated, they were turned into these fruits. And it's the same thing as sad, right? It's just the OG formula for the creation of devil fruits. It doesn't have to be that way. It's just one of the ideas I've thought about over time. But that's what I was thinking about when he talked about countless resources. And this kind of ties back to stuff like the kids at Punk Hazard, what Caesar was doing, right? If you think about the Seraphim, more than likely this is something that transpired because of someone like, King, the Lunarian, who was taken outside of his own will. Well, Kaido might have been a trade. We know how Kaido is. He don't care. He's like, you can't beat me anyway, so I'll just, if I had to trade in some blood to get what I want, if I want something different that you can give to me, then I have no problem making that barter. Like, we know Kaido will barter. If you give him what he wants, he'll give you whatever he can, as long as it fits him, right? We've seen that, including to how he adds crew members. So that's kind of what I'm thinking would happen. If it wasn't one of those times where Kaido was just captured, he probably specifically went to Dr. Vegapunk for a reason, and said, hey, I need this, or can you do this? And this also ties to the giantification thing, because we see this, the same, and I don't know if I talked about this a couple of chapters back when we first saw the Iron Giant. It had mad Onigashima vibes, right? Because Oda even put a sword right next to him. Now, in this panel, we're seeing Iron Giant up close, because Dr. Vegapunk basically is explaining to Luffy, yo, I didn't make this. Because Luffy's basically telling him how great he is. And again, he has that perfect imperfection that a scientist you would expect to have, right? Where it doesn't matter how great someone else thinks. If you haven't accomplished exactly what you think you're supposed to, you're still failing, right? And he goes, yo, I didn't make this Iron Giant. He was already here, man. This is the same one that 200 years ago ran up on Mary Jo's pub, climbed the Grand Line, and went to work. Now, what's interesting in this, why I did notice it more with the Iron Giant, that the horn was missing. Because I don't know why I didn't the vibe on that, even though I had the Onigashima references. It felt like the horn, like how the skull of Onigashima was shown, and the entrance to it with the sword on the right side into the ground, a huge sword that we never saw. And, there's that lore of the giants, right? Because of Punk Hazard and the numbers, like I was just talking about, and stuff like ores, and even Don Chinjiao's, say the treasure that he was chasing frozen under ice, right? Stuff being stuck in ice in One Piece has been a thing. So I was thinking, like, basically, I'm like, okay, so what if when you look at this legendary Iron Giant, is it tech or was it a person inside, right? Or it's powered by a creature or some sort? Because you see the spear or a pole through its torso, but in the flashback panel, it looks like the same weapon, like he had a long spear. And I'm wondering, like, okay, did he just, is this something going to be something really destructive, or is this Goofy where he fell on this thing, right, and impaled himself? If it was a giant to begin with and not, a smaller creature that uses some kind of force, because the way Vegapunk describes it always makes it sound like, this ties to the eternal flame, right? The source of unlimited power or perpetual power, in this case, in the One Piece verse of what they're trying to do. And one of the things he's trying to achieve, when Shaka, who, by the way, that's what he would want to show the Straw Hats. He wanted to show him the Iron Giant. And then, of course, they're able to see what's going on with Luffy and the rest of them, so they can see what's going on. So I'm like, okay, cool. Both sides are on the same page. Both Vegapunks are keeping the plot together as far as the Straw Hats are concerned. So it's not like each side doesn't know what's going on, because sometimes that's annoying in stories where it's just like, come on, how do you guys not know what's going on? But this won't be one of those cases. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. But so that's what was, I noticed it more because one of the horns was cut off. And of course, anything having to do with my man hailing in from the south side of Shimosuke Village, the Senpai of the Santoryu, if it's tied to him, I'd never forget it. But I was just like, you know what? That's very strange. I don't know if it's an aesthetic thing or is this one of those things where, Oda sometimes I don't want to say reuses designs. That's not the vibe. It's more like he's trying to make things look similar for a reason. I don't like again. It could just be nothing, but I don't think it's an accident with the importance of giants to begin with. But it's just like okay, why does this look exactly like Onigashima? Why does this look like the situation in Thriller Bark? Why do these have the same kind of vibe to them? Like it's not just because they're giant creatures. And then I was thinking about something else that I talk about from time to time. Because, like, right, this entire time, this group of scientists that existed 200 years ago, which Robin brings up the same time as the Fishman rights, their movement towards that. And we've had that reference before, but that's not a known time period in the series, right? Even if you go to some of the old calendars, like we would talk about the time period during Skypiea, like stuff hundreds of years before the story and before the Void Century. There's nothing in there specific to this time period but the people in Fishman Island, which we know what happened with Fisher Tiger. So it's like, do these two things tie together? I don't know. But what I was thinking about was when Luffy was standing on top of the Iron Giant, I'm like, you know what? Because I've talked about this before. I've been very curious about there's like 10 or that you guys know the 10 or 12 statues in front of Mary Joie during the Return to Reverie arc, the ones that Garp was escorting Shirahoshi and King Neptune. I always talk about it because of how huge they are, because they're way bigger than Shirahoshi, and we know she's about like 40 feet tall. So even though that's tall by One Piece standards, she didn't look anything close to near the size of these things. But now seeing again in this chapter, seeing this Iron Giant who scaled the red line and went into Morijua's solo dolo. like, and I was thinking, I'm like, wait a minute. And that was the other reason it was stuck in my head about why is the pole in the torso of this Iron Giant look so, feels like it ties to something. And I remember each of the statues, some of them had shields. Of course, this could be like just either religious references or they're just there to look cool, because of how the celestial fish bowls are. But some of them did have weapons. Like I remember there's like 2 or 3 that had swords, a couple had spears, and the rest had shields. And they were all kind of alternated. I forget exactly what chapter. I have to go back and look. But it's definitely in the Return to Reverie arc. So it was somewhat recently, right? But it was right in the part of the Return to Reverie arc, that panel it's right before they get to the moving sidewalk, when we learn that they use slaves to basically drive escalators and moving sidewalks. It's right before that. You cannot possibly miss them. They're huge, but they're not like focused on, but you can see them as well as in the anime. So I was just like, that's interesting, especially seeing now because of how big this giant is. Are these statues really statues, or can they function in some other ways? It's like, I have no idea. It's not a guarantee, but it's just something on the side that I've been thinking about for a very long time. And then this chapter brought it back out because of the Onigashima thing. So while all this is going on, of course, and then even in the flashback for the Iron Giant, the horn was missing already. So it'd be different if in the flashback that showed the panel, the horn was still there, and now it's missing, because then you can imply, okay, it was just defeated or something. But the fact the horn was missing already, it's like, why is that? I don't really think it's an accident. But again, it might just tie again to the Eternal Flame situation with perpetual motion or whatever it is that they figured out. And then basically, Dr. Vegapunk brought up he has to give something to Bonnie and asked Luffy to take him away from Egghead Island. Now, here's the thing. For one, does he want to broadcast a message based on wanting to invent the internet and upload data, and then based on some of the stuff he knows, right, about the Void Century, stuff that he's not telling us, that he hasn't talked about yet, because clearly him and Dragon have previous conversations to this, right? This wasn't a one-off conversation for them flashbacking to all horror. This is 20 years of who knows how many conversations about different things as each one discovers different things, right? So for that to be the case, is this a Marine Force situation where Marine Force was broadcasted, right? And then we get a situation before, or an inspirational moment like with Whitebeard saying that the One Piece exists, tying back to Roger. Do we get something like that with Vegapunk and him just trying to give out knowledge and then he dies? Because the fact that his database is back at Punk Records, right? He can be as far away and receive brainwaves all he wants, but I just think he wants to go somewhere specific to maximize this brainwave link thing to do something. I'm thinking. I don't think he wants to leave Egghead Island permanently and join the Straw Hats. He has something specific he wants to do because he already foreshadowed his own death, right? And we know Cypher Pole is here, and they know how Vegapunk functions. And this is what I was talking about earlier as far as his weaknesses. Because he has to sync up data during a day, it's similar to sleep. You might have a Dr. Vegapunk York, which I don't even know what she's the expert in her field besides what she does. And some of y'all knew her. Ooh, I can see the OnlyFans now just for York. It's disgusting. You all sicken me. But during that time period, they're pretty much useless, right? If they're syncing data. We don't know how long it takes, but similar to being asleep, that's a vulnerable time period. And again, the government knows about his ability. It more than likely had something to do with him getting the fruit in the first place, because why wouldn't they, right? But there came a point where he is now where it's like, all right, man, you got to go. So do they attack Punk Records and the Straw Hats have to protect it, similar to what Shaka is basically saying, like, dude, the Cypher Pole is showing up. It's not to say or be friends or hang out. They're not asking, right? We're getting ready to throw some hands. So the fact that Shaka is already on that pretty much told me what I already thought. Like I was saying earlier, that Vegapunk, I'm not saying he's, OP or nothing, but there's no way he has no combat ability. That just wouldn't make any sense, right? We've already heard him referenced too many times and too many different people who have wanted him. He hasn't just been hanging out under the world government this whole time. Right? If he's sneaking off to a place like Elbaf, of all places, then there's no telling where else he's been on his own. So that's kind of the vibe that I get for that. And again, Shaka's ready to throw some hands. We already see Wrath, right? We know about some of the technology that's there that if anybody knows how to deal with fruit users, it's going to be Dr. Vegapunk. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I don't think Cypher Pole will be back in the story just to get low diff, like, how Blue Dripper Scarfino, shout out to Randy Troy, did back at Wano, with the whole situation, like, basically being irrelevant from a combat standpoint. He just looked cool for a few panels. But at the same time, it's just like, man, the Sanji being there is, I'm not saying he could beat Lucci and Kaku at the same time or nothing like that, but Sanji is a heavy hitter, man. So him being there just makes it really, then again, the Seraphim might be, and then they do have some bums with them too. So I see some scrubs in the background. But I don't know, man, because it's like if the Straw Hats get together at the same time, there's no way Cypher Pole is winning. It's just not happening. You're not beating Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy on the same battlefield. You gotta, if it ain't Shanks or Kainu showing up, like that kind of in-game stuff, just don't do it, man. If Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy are in the same place, it's just not going down. It's just not. So some other stuff is gonna have to happen. And more than likely, we'll get a situation where Luffy might not even be a part of this fight. It's very possible. Because Gear 5th is already way too busted, for it to be dealing with like people like this, like with the Straw Hats as a whole. So I think his task is going to be more set on helping out Vegapunk, and then we might get some backstory with Dragon, with Luffy and Dr. Vegapunk having a conversation about Dragon, because Dragon probably has something to do with part of the reason why Vegapunk wants to do this in the first place. Right? You don't talk to somebody on the phone and tell them, hey, man, I might be dead soon, and then go off to go complete a task and they're not involved in some way. Especially what we got at the end of the chapter with Kuma flipping out, right, on its own and trying to run away to do something that we don't know. And whatever goes on with this battle with Cypherpole, watch out for Lilith, man. We already know. Like, just watch out for Lilith. She might pull something real shiesty, and stay true to her name. And the last thing I have a question about, right? As cool and hype as it is to see Hattori, right? My man, the real and one and only Rob Lucci. And, Robert D. Gucci is basically Hattori's stand, right, at this point. But what did he mean about Bonnie's statement? She served her purpose. We might as well get rid of her. Now we know too bad Bonnie ain't going nowhere. Shout out to the boy Laz. But that's a very interesting statement because it might explain why Bonnie is free in the first place, and it would be kind of weird because it goes against most of what we thought, right? Being tied to her ability, something being important. So did she actually get away from the government, or was she just let go? Because they knew where Egghead Island is. It's not like they had to follow Bonnie to get there. So what purpose did she serve already? I feel like there's something that's being left out that we don't know what happened, right? Back when Sabo and a few good men hit up Mary Jo's pub. There's something in there that we don't know about because, again, I've been saying for how long, man, how is it that Jory Bonnie went to the hands of Akainu to just walking around? Even with her ability, it's like, with the way that they had Ace under the Hannibal Lecter treatment in Jinbei, how would they let Bonnie even be in a position to be free? She should have been under Karoseki at all times. It just doesn't make any sense to me unless Akainu did something funny in between or somebody else did. Because even someone like an espionage type of character, we just don't know who. That's odd to me that Rob Lucci would say that. Again, if Kuma's part of a special race, then genetically speaking, so would Bonnie. And you think about her fruit, and it's just like how it was Kuma hiding her fruit from the government in the first place because it's used for something. It still doesn't make any sense that they would let her go. She should be dead. So I'm more interested in that almost than anything else now because we kind of know the plot points of what Cypherpole is going to attempt to do, right? Anything having to do with Robin is a go. Get rid of Dr. Vegapunk. Don't tear up no technology and get up on out of there. And we might as well kill Bonnie on the way out. But that's just really weird to me. So I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, y'all know what it is, man. Be easy out there. Be safe. Enjoy your streams and all that other good stuff. And we'll be back soon for something else. Peace.